It was a quiet evening in Tokyo, the kind of evening where the noise of the bustling city faded into the background, and the faint glow of neon lights bathed the streets in a soft, eerie luminescence. The usual chatter of people rushing to and from their destinations was subdued, almost as if the city itself had become weary. There was something different about tonight, something in the air that made it feel heavier than usual. People could sense it, an intangible weight that hung in the atmosphere, but they couldn't explain it. It wasn't just the usual Tokyo hustle, or the tired hum of late-night commuters. It was something far more unsettling. Rumors had begun to spread, whispered among the few people who still roamed the streets, the shadows of the city embracing them as they walked. The stories were strange, almost nonsensical, but too many people were saying the same thing. People had been disappearing. One by one, they vanished without a trace. No signs of struggle, no bodies found, just gone. As the days passed, the disappearances started to pile up, and with each one, the whispers grew louder. The victims had no connection to each other. Some were young, some old, some were strangers, while others were close friends or family members. Yet they all shared one chilling thing in common. They were all gone, as if swallowed by the night itself. Rika, a curious and ambitious college student, had heard the rumors, of course. She'd heard the stories and the jokes, with her friends teasing her about the curse of Sadako, the infamous vengeful spirit from the cursed videotape. They laughed at the idea, brushing it off as nothing more than an urban legend, a ghost story passed down through generations. After all, they were in Tokyo, the heart of technology, progress, and modernity. Ghosts didn't belong in this city, right? But tonight felt different. As Rika walked home through the darkened streets, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Her usual route was empty. Too empty for the typically crowded sidewalks of Tokyo. The neon signs blinked in a way that felt more ominous than usual, and the hum of the city's life seemed muted, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Her mind kept returning to the rumors of the disappearances. People had been disappearing for weeks now, and no one seemed to know why. Some said it was the work of Sadako's curse, but Rika had always dismissed such talk as nonsense. Ghosts didn't exist. There had to be a rational explanation. But tonight, that doubt crept into her mind. Was it really just an urban legend? Was there something real behind these strange occurrences? Rika was a skeptic by nature, raised in a family that valued logic and science over superstition. She had always regarded the stories of Sadako as little more than a way to spook children. She'd seen the movie as a child and had even laughed at how ridiculous it seemed. After all, the idea of a cursed videotape that kills you 7 days after you watch it was preposterous. But as she walked home that evening, the strange atmosphere around her made her question everything. When she arrived home, Rika tried to shake off the unease that had followed her. She turned on her laptop, hoping to distract herself with some late-night studying, but she couldn't concentrate. Her thoughts kept drifting back to the disappearances. She decided to call her best friend, Mika, who had been her rock through the years. Mika always had a way of making things seem less frightening, of making sense of the chaos. "Hey, Mika, I've been hearing these weird stories. People are disappearing, one by one," Rika said, her voice slightly shaky. "Oh, you heard that too, huh?" Mika replied, her voice sounding more amused than concerned. "It's just the Sadako thing again. You know, the curse, the ghost, all that stuff." Rika paused. "But I don't know. Something feels off tonight. Explain it. I thought it was just rumors at first, but now I'm not so sure." Mika didn't take Rika's worries seriously, but Rika could hear a hint of unease in her friend's tone. They had both grown up on stories of Sadako, but something about the way the rumors were spreading felt different this time. Then Mika said something that caught Rika off guard. "Hey, I've got something weird I want to show you," Mika said, her voice lowering, as if she was sharing a secret. Rika raised an eyebrow. "What is it?" Mika hesitated before replying. "It's a video. I found it on the dark web. It's not like the others. Just watch it. I'll send you the link." Rika was taken aback. Mika was always curious, but the idea of watching something from the dark web made her uncomfortable. "Mika, no way. I don't need to see something like that." But Mika insisted, "No, you have to see this. I don't know why, but I feel like it's important. Just watch it, okay?" After a few moments of hesitation, Rika finally agreed. Mika sent her the link, and Rika clicked on it, her heart pounding slightly in her chest. She didn't know why she felt so nervous. It was just a video, right? But something about it felt wrong. The video started with nothing, just a static screen. There was no sound, just the faint hum of white noise filling her speakers. But then, slowly, a shape began to form in the middle of the screen. It was faint at first, just a blurry silhouette. As the seconds passed, it grew clearer, tighter. Rika's breath caught in her throat as the figure took shape. There, in the middle of the screen, was Sadako. Her dark hair hung in matted strands, blocking most of her face, just like in the stories. The familiar image from the cursed videotape was unmistakable, but this wasn't a movie scene. It wasn't scripted. It felt real. The static on the screen grew louder, the figure slowly moving as if it was alive. Rika's mind raced. She wanted to turn it off, to stop watching, but something held her frozen in place. The figure began to move, its body contorting unnaturally, its hair floating like it had a life of its own. Rika's pulse quickened. She felt her hands shaking as the figure inched closer to the screen. Its eyes, those cold, dead eyes, slowly emerging from the hair. And then, a voice came through the static. Faint, barely audible. It wasn't a voice she recognized, but it was unmistakably clear in its chilling message. You shouldn't have watched. Rika gasped and pulled her hands away from the screen, her heart hammering in her chest. Her mind screamed at her to turn it off, but it was too late. She had already seen it. Mika's message appeared on the screen a moment later. I warned you. Now we're both in it. Rika's stomach dropped. Something terrible was coming. Rika couldn't sleep after that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Sadako's face emerging from the darkness, her pale skin illuminated by the faint glow of the static. The hair that hung in a messy tangle covered her face, but Rika could still feel her eyes, those empty, haunting eyes, burning into her soul. No matter how hard she tried to shut out the image, it lingered. She tossed and turned in her bed, unable to escape the memory of that cursed video. It felt as if the spirit was watching her, waiting for her to slip into sleep, to be vulnerable enough to claim her. The more Rika thought about it, the more she noticed things happening around her. Flickering lights, cold drafts sweeping through her apartment, and strange sounds in the middle of the night. At first, she dismissed them as coincidences. Maybe it was the wind or the old pipes in her building. But as the days went by, these occurrences grew more frequent and unnerving. The lights would flicker even when no one was near the switches. Her phone, which was never out of reach, would occasionally turn on by itself, the screen flashing to life with nothing but static. Just like the cursed video. One night, as she was preparing dinner, she heard a loud bang from the living room. Her heart leaped into her throat, and she rushed to see what had caused the noise. When she entered the room, everything seemed normal, except for the TV. It was turned on, but there was no image, just the same static she'd seen before. Rika's pulse quickened, and she hurried to turn it off. Her fingers trembled as she pressed the button, but when the TV screen flickered back to black, she felt a strange sense of dread settle over her. Was Sadako trying to reach her? Was the curse already in motion? The unsettling events didn't stop at her apartment. People around Tokyo had started acting strangely too. At first, it was subtle. She noticed it in the faces of her classmates as she walked through campus. They seemed distracted, haunted. Conversations were more whispered than usual, and there was a sense of fear in the air. something that was growing harder to ignore. People jumped at shadows, stared off into space, as if they were seeing something just beyond their reach. It wasn't just Rika. She began hearing more whispers, people talking about strange things, things they couldn't explain. Some had seen figures in the corners of their vision, while others spoke of hearing faint whispers in the dark. It wasn't long before she realized that something had shifted in the city. The curse was spreading, and Sadako's presence was growing stronger. Rika had to know more. She couldn't let fear dictate her every move. She needed answers, something to explain why this was happening, why she felt so exposed. With a renewed sense of purpose, Rika decided to dig deeper into the legend of Sadako. She needed to understand the curse, the spirit that had haunted Tokyo for so long. The next day, Rika visited the local library, hoping to find some records, old books, or even newspaper clippings that might shed light on Sadako's origins. She spent hours combing through old folklore and urban legends, tracing the history of the curse. What she discovered was far more terrifying than anything she had imagined. Sadako wasn't just some spirit, a ghost to be dismissed as a myth. She was something far more dangerous. Sadako's origins were rooted in a darkness that stretched back centuries. She had once been a human woman, betrayed by those she trusted most. Her rage, her deep-seated hatred, had transformed her into a creature of unimaginable power. According to the old stories, Sadako had been a victim of cruelty, her life taken from her in the most violent and unforgiving way. But her soul hadn't passed on. Instead, it had been trapped, left to fester in the darkness. She became a vengeful spirit, an entity of pure malevolence, waiting for the right moment to rise again. But Sadako's curse wasn't just a matter of vengeance. It was a force of nature, capable of bending reality itself. When she was wronged, when she was betrayed, she could alter the world around her, manipulating the living and even the dead. The more Rika read, the more she understood that Sadako wasn't just a ghost. She was a supernatural entity, capable of reaching into the hearts and minds of those who dared to cross her path. The legend spoke of how Sadako's power had once been sealed away, locked in an ancient well where her curse could do no harm. But over time, as technology advanced and the world changed, the seal weakened. The video, the cursed tape, had been a means for Sadako to escape her prison. The moment someone watched it, they unleashed her wrath upon themselves, drawing her closer and closer until she could claim them. Rika's blood ran cold as she read the final paragraph of the book. The curse wasn't just a story. It was real, and it was back. The disappearances, the strange occurrences, the terror sweeping through Tokyo. It was all connected to Sadako's awakening. And now, the curse was starting again. Her mind raced. She couldn't just sit by and wait for Sadako to claim more victims. She had to do something. But what? The curse was insidious. It could find its way into the lives of anyone who had watched the tape, or even come into contact with someone who had. Rika felt a sense of urgency building within her. She needed to warn people, but how could she? How could she convince anyone that the horror from the cursed tape was real? As she closed the library book, Rika realized that she was trapped. There was no running away from the curse. It was already here, in the air, in the city. Sadako was real, and she was coming for everyone. Rika couldn't help but feel a deep, creeping fear rising inside her. She had thought she was just another skeptic, someone who could laugh at ghost stories. But now, the horror was far too close for comfort. She had seen it. She had heard it. Sadako was alive, and the curse had already begun to take hold. There was no turning back now. Days passed in Tokyo, and with each passing day, the sense of unease in the city grew stronger. The once vibrant streets seemed to lose their color, the usual buzz of activity now replaced by whispers and fearful glances. People were talking about the cursed video, the video that, once watched, would seal your fate. No one knew exactly how it worked, but the stories were the same. The whispers spoke of the dark, static-filled screen, and the terrifying figure that emerged from the darkness, slowly crawling towards its victim. And then they were gone. The disappearances kept happening, one by one. But now there was something even more chilling. The fear wasn't just about vanishing. It was about the curse, the unstoppable force that was creeping through the city like a shadow. Rika had been trying to push aside the growing panic that had started to take hold of her. But no matter how hard she tried to ignore it, the feeling of dread kept clawing at her. The stories about Sadako seemed too real now, and the curse was too close for comfort. She had thought it was just another story, a piece of urban legend, but now she wasn't so sure. She had seen the video too. She knew that once it touched you, it wouldn't let go. She couldn't escape that thought. She couldn't sleep, couldn't focus. Everywhere she looked, it seemed like there was a shadow just out of sight, just waiting to reach for her. It was one afternoon, when the weight of the past few days finally caught up to her, that she received a call from Mika. Rika's heart skipped a beat as she saw her friend's name flashing on her phone screen. Mika had been quiet recently, her messages growing more infrequent. Rika's mind raced. Was something wrong? Had the curse already reached her too? Mika, what's wrong? Rika asked, her voice thick with concern. Mika's voice trembled, and Rika could barely recognize it. She sounded scared. No, terrified. Rika. I watched the video. I didn't think it was real, but I think it's here. I can feel it. It's coming for me. Rika froze. A cold chill ran down her spine. She had heard those words before, in the stories and in the warnings. It's coming for me. The moment Mika spoke those words, it felt like a veil had been lifted, and the terrible truth slammed into Rika's chest. Sadako, the curse. It wasn't just a story anymore. It was hunting them, closing in. Mika, no. Please don't say that. You need to get out of there. You need to... Rika started, but her voice trailed off, swallowed by a strange static noise that filled the phone line. It wasn't the sound of a poor connection. It was the same crackling noise that Rika had heard when she watched the cursed tape herself. That unmistakable, haunting static. Her heart raced, her breath caught in her throat. Mika? Rika called out, but the line went dead. Silence. Rika stood frozen, the phone still pressed to her ear. The room around her felt too cold, too quiet. Her mind was screaming at her to do something, anything, but her body refused to move. She could only stare at the phone, waiting for the connection to come back, but it never did. A sinking feeling filled Rika's stomach, and the reality of the situation hit her with full force. Mika had watched the video, and now something was coming for her. Something she couldn't escape. Rika knew, deep in her gut, that Sadako's curse was real, and it was only a matter of time before it claimed another victim. The rest of the evening passed in a haze. Rika couldn't stop thinking about Mika. What if it was too late? What if Sadako had already reached her, already taken her? Her thoughts raced as she tried to find a way to help her friend. But the more she thought about it, the more helpless she felt. There was no way to escape the curse once it had begun. There was no stopping it. No one could save them. The next morning, Rika tried to push the feeling of dread aside. She had to keep going, had to pretend like everything was fine. But as she made her way to campus, she couldn't shake the dark cloud that had settled over her. Her thoughts were scattered. Her focus was gone. It was only when she returned to her apartment that she saw the news. Her heart stopped when she read the headline, "Young woman found dead in Tokyo apartment. Cause of death unknown." Rika's hands shook as she held the phone, the words on the screen blurring in front of her eyes. The article detailed the discovery of a body. Mika's body. Her apartment had been found locked from the inside, and there were no signs of a struggle. But the most terrifying part of it was the description of her face. Her eyes were wide open, staring at nothing, her mouth twisted twisted in an expression of pure terror, as if she had seen something far worse than death itself. Rika's breath caught in her throat as she read the words. It was just like the others. The ones who had watched the video. The ones who had fallen victim to Sadako's curse. They all died the same way, eyes wide, frozen in fear, their bodies twisted in a final silent scream. And now, Mika had become one of them, one of Sadako's victims. Rika felt her legs go weak beneath her, and she collapsed onto the couch, her mind spinning. She had tried to tell Mika that the curse was real, that there was no escape. But it was too late now. Mika was gone. And the worst part was, Rika knew that she could be next. The days that followed were a blur. Rika couldn't bring herself to leave her apartment. She was terrified of stepping outside, afraid that Sadako's curse was waiting for her, that it was already close, already hunting. But even inside, she wasn't safe. The air around her felt heavy, oppressive, as if something was lurking just beyond her vision, watching her every move. She couldn't escape the feeling that Sadako was there, in the corners of her room, in the flickering of the lights, in the strange sounds at night. Rika had heard the stories before, but they had always seemed so far away, so distant. She had laughed them off, thinking they were just the overactive imaginations of people who were easily frightened. But now she knew. The curse wasn't just some myth. It was real. And Sadako was coming for her, just like she had come for Mika. The city of Tokyo, once vibrant and alive, had become a dark, haunted place, its streets filled with whispers and fear. And there was no way to stop it. The curse had returned, and it was hunting them all, one by one. Rika knew she had to stop this. She couldn't let Sadako claim more victims. Every fiber of her being screamed at her to find a way to end it, to prevent the cursed spirit from spreading its terror. The weight of her failure to protect Mika pressed down on her chest, suffocating her. The thought that she might be next, or worse, that someone else she cared about would fall victim to the curse, kept her awake at night. She had to do something. She couldn't sit idly by, knowing what she knew. For days, Rika stayed up late, scrolling through every piece of information she could find. Books, articles, online forums, anything that might contain a clue, a shred of hope that could offer a solution. But the more she read, the more hopeless it seemed. Everything pointed to one horrifying truth. Sadako's curse was unstoppable. There was no escaping it. No way to stop it. It wasn't just the video anymore. That was only the beginning, the catalyst. Sadako had found a way to break free from the confines of the screen and enter the real world, bending reality to her will. The curse didn't just affect those who had watched a video. People who had never seen the tape, began to experience the terror. They started to see Sadako's face in mirrors, in the reflection of windows, in the shadows lurking at the edge of their vision. She was everywhere. Her presence was creeping into every corner of Tokyo, a force that couldn't be contained. Even the bravest among them couldn't ignore it. People were starting to lose their minds. They were afraid to look into mirrors, afraid to be alone in the dark. Rika could feel it too. The air was thick with fear. It was like Tokyo itself had been infected by Sadako's curse. And the more people tried to resist, the worse it got. She needed answers, but every time she thought she was getting closer, the truth seemed even more elusive. The city was unraveling, and Rika could do nothing but watch. She knew she couldn't fight this alone, but who could she turn to? Her family had become distant, afraid of the very thing she was trying to confront. Her mother and father were terrified that Sadako's curse might already be creeping into their lives, and they shut themselves off from her, refusing to even talk about it. They were too scared. As for her friends, well, they had either disappeared or were too frightened to offer any real support. Everyone seemed to be retreating into themselves, consumed by their own fear. The city was spiraling into chaos, and Rika felt powerless. Desperate for a way to fight back, Rika decided to seek out someone who might know more about Sadako and the curse than she did. Someone who had studied the supernatural, who might have a clue about how to stop it. That's when she met Yuki, an old paranormal investigator who had spent years researching haunted places and curses. Yuki had a reputation in the field for being one of the few who could handle the most dangerous and unexplainable phenomena. She was known for her knowledge of ancient rituals, lost lore, and forgotten legends. Rika reached out to her, hoping that she could offer some kind of solution to this nightmare. They met in a small cafe on the outskirts of Tokyo, far from the chaos and fear that had overtaken the city. Yuki was an older woman with silver hair and sharp eyes that seemed to have seen more than most people could ever imagine. Her face was weathered, but there was a calmness in her demeanor that made Rika feel a small sense of relief. She wasn't sure what Yuki would be able to do, but at least she could listen to Rika's story without the fear that everyone else seemed to have. As Rika explained everything to Yuki, the video, the curse, the disappearances, Mika's death, Yuki listened intently, her gaze never wavering. When Rika finished, Yuki took a deep breath, as though absorbing the weight of everything she had heard.
The curse of Sadako isn't like any other.
Yuki said quietly, her voice steady. This isn't just a spirit seeking revenge. Sadako is a force of nature, a primal entity born from deep, unrelenting rage. Her curse is not something that can be easily erased. It is tied to the very fabric of the world. She can bend reality, twist it, manipulate it to her will. Rika's stomach churned as she listened. She had suspected that there was more to Sadako than just the urban legend. But hearing it put so plainly made the terror of the situation sink even deeper. Yuki continued. Sadako was wronged, betrayed by those she trusted most, and in her rage, she was forced into the darkness. She never truly died, Rika. Her soul was trapped, left to fester and twist into something beyond a normal spirit. And now, she's free. The video is just a gateway, a way for her to reach the living. But it's not just about the people who've watched it. Once she has tasted vengeance, she cannot be stopped. She has found a way to cross the boundaries between her world and ours. Rika's heart sank. This wasn't just a haunting. It was an unstoppable force, one that couldn't be reasoned with or bargained with. She had to stop it, but how? Yuki looked at her, her expression grim. To stop Sadako, we have to confront her. We have to find the place where her soul is trapped, the place where her curse was born. It's the only way. But I must warn you, Rika, it won't be easy. The journey will be dangerous, and not everyone will survive. Sadako will do everything she can to prevent us from reaching her resting place. She will use everything in her power to stop us. But if we succeed, we might be able to break the curse once and for all. Rika felt a rush of emotions, fear, determination, and a deep sense of responsibility. She knew what she had to do. She had to find the place where Sadako's soul was trapped and confront her, no matter the cost. But as Yuki spoke, Rika realized just how much was at stake. The curse wasn't just about her survival, it was about saving everyone. If she failed, Sadako's rage would consume the entire city. I'm ready, Rika said, her voice firm despite the fear gnawing at her insides. I have to do this. I won't let her take anyone else. Yuki nodded, her eyes filled with a mix of sympathy and concern. Then we have no time to waste. We must move quickly before the curse spreads any further. Rika knew that the journey ahead would be filled with danger and uncertainty. But she also knew one thing. There was no other choice. She had to face Sadako. And she had to stop the curse before it destroyed everything. The clock was ticking, and she was running out of time. Rika and Yuki made their way through the eerily quiet streets of Tokyo. Their destination, the heart of the city, where the ancient well, the source of Sadako's curse, was said to be hidden. The journey felt like they were walking through a dream, or perhaps a nightmare. The city, which had once been filled with the usual hum of life, now felt suffocating, its streets strangely desolate. It was as though the very air was charged with an oppressive weight, a sense of something wrong that couldn't be ignored. The further they walked, the more intense the feeling. They passed through alleyways and narrow streets, their footsteps the only sound breaking the silence. Yet, even in the stillness, there was something disturbing about the quiet. The wind seemed to carry whispers, faint and barely audible, but undeniably there. Every now and then, Rika could have sworn she saw something out of the corner of her eye, shadows shifting just beyond her vision, fleeting glimpses of a twisted figure that sent a shiver down her spine. Each time she looked closer, there was nothing there, but the feeling remained. It was as though Sadako's presence was closing in on them, watching, waiting, biding her time until they were close enough for her to strike.
Rika felt her pulse quicken as they approached an abandoned building that stood alone at the end of a forgotten street. The building was decaying, its walls cracked and crumbling with age. It had been abandoned for years, but there was something about it that made it feel more like a tomb than a structure. The air grew thick, heavy with an almost tangible energy, like the very ground beneath them was pulsing with life or death. Rika's breath caught in her throat as she glanced at Yuki, who didn't seem surprised by the building's ominous presence. "This is it," Yuki said, her voice low and steady, though Rika could sense a hint of apprehension behind it. "The well is beneath this place. We have to go down there. It's the only way to confront Sadako." Rika's heart pounded in her chest. She had prepared herself for this moment, but now that they were here, standing on the threshold of the darkness that had been haunting her for so long, she felt a surge of fear rise within her. She knew they had no choice but to go forward. But the idea of stepping into the very place where Sadako's curse had been born, where the vengeful spirit had been trapped for so long, was almost too much to bear. As they entered the building, the darkness seemed to swallow them whole. The musty scent of decay filled the air, mingling with the dampness of the abandoned space. It was so dark inside that Rika could barely see her hand in front of her face. The only light came from the faint glow of her phone's flashlight, casting long, eerie shadows on the walls. Every step they took echoed through the empty halls, a sound that seemed to reverberate in the silence, amplifying the tension in the air. The deeper they went, the more the atmosphere seemed to shift. Rika's skin prickled, and she felt a constant chill running through her, despite the heat of the night. It wasn't just the temperature. There was something else, something unsettling, a presence that seemed to cling to the walls and the floors, a feeling that they were being watched. Her mind raced, the fear clawing at her throat, but she refused to turn back. They had come this far, and they couldn't stop now. Eventually, They reached a small, crumbling room at the center of the building. In the middle of the room was the well. It was small, but its presence felt overwhelmingly heavy, as though it were far older than anything in the building itself. The edges of the well were jagged and cracked, and the stones surrounding it were covered in moss and dirt, giving it a sense of neglect. But Rika knew better than to underestimate its significance. This was where Sadako's curse had been born, where her spirit had been trapped, waiting for someone to come close enough to claim. The very ground beneath their feet seemed to hum with a low, ominous energy. Rika's breath caught in her throat as she peered down into the darkness of the well. It was impossibly deep, the bottom shrouded in inky blackness. She could feel her body tensing, every muscle screaming for her to turn away, to leave this place before it was too late. But she couldn't. They had come too far, and they needed to confront Sadako now, or else the curse would spread, claiming more lives in its wake. There, deep within the well, Rika saw something. At first, it was just a flicker, a brief, twisted shape shifting in the shadows. But then, it grew clearer, more defined. Slowly, she realized what she was seeing. It was Sadako. Her form was twisted and unnatural, her long hair flowing like a dark river, her body contorting unnaturally as she shifted within the depths of the well. Her eyes, cold, empty eyes, seemed to burn into Rika's soul, and for a moment, Rika couldn't breathe. She had never felt such raw terror before. The darkness surrounding Sadako seemed to pulse with a life of its own, as if the spirit itself was feeding off Rika's fear. Rika stepped forward, her body trembling, unable to tear her gaze away from the terrifying figure. She could feel the weight of Sadako's presence, suffocating and relentless. The air in the room grew thicker, heavier, as if the curse itself was awakening, responding to their intrusion. She could hear the faint sound of her own heartbeat in her ears, a rapid drumbeat that matched the rhythm of the pulse beneath the ground. And then, without warning, the ground trembled beneath her feet. The room shook, and Rika felt the floor beneath her shift, as though it were alive, moving with the force of some terrible power. The well began to vibrate, the stones around it rattling as though they were about to give way. Rika stumbled backward, panic rising in her chest as she realized what was happening. From the depths of the well, Sadako's face emerged. At first, it was just a shadow, a silhouette of rage, anger, and despair. But as the figure slowly climbed up from the darkness, Rika's blood ran cold.
Sadako's twisted form was climbing out of the well, her long, matted hair flowing like a wave of terror, her body stretching and contorting as though it was made of nothing but darkness itself. Her eyes were wide open, filled with unrelenting hatred. They locked onto Rika, and for a moment, Rika was frozen in place, her entire body paralyzed by fear. Sadako's face twisted into a grotesque grin, her mouth opening to release a sound that was neither a scream nor a whisper, but a guttural noise that made Rika's blood run cold. It was the sound of despair, of suffering, of pure malice. And then, just as suddenly, the darkness surged forward, and Sadako lunged at her, her body flowing like liquid shadow, unstoppable and fierce.
Rika's heart pounded in her chest, her legs moving instinctively as she backed away from the well. But the room seemed to close in on her. The walls seemed to pulse with the same dark energy that surrounded Sadako. The very air was thick with the curse. It was too late to escape. Sadako's form loomed over Rika, towering like a nightmare brought to life. Her presence was overwhelming, suffocating, and as her twisted figure moved toward Rika, the air grew thick with darkness. Rika felt as though the very walls of the abandoned building were closing in on her, pressing down with the weight of centuries of hatred and rage. Her heart raced in her chest, and her breathing became shallow as her eyes locked onto Sadako's face, her hollow, unblinking eyes filled with malice. Her mouth curled into a grotesque, silent snarl. The curse that had haunted Tokyo for so long was here, standing right before her, a living nightmare made flesh. But Rika wasn't going to give up. She couldn't. Not now. Rika remembered the words Yuki had spoken to her before they had entered this cursed place. Face the darkness, and it will have no power over you. Those words echoed in Rika's mind like a mantra, giving her the strength to stand tall, to defy the terror that threatened to consume her. She had come this far, had seen her best friend Mika die, had watched the curse spread across the city. She wasn't going to let Sadako claim more lives, not when she had the chance to stop it. With every ounce of willpower, Rika stepped forward, forcing herself not to flinch under Sadako's gaze. The darkness in the room seemed to pulse with a life of its own, swirling around her like a storm. It pressed against her, trying to overwhelm her, to swallow her whole. But Rika gritted her teeth and stood firm. She reached into her pocket, pulling out the ancient texts she had studied with Yuki, the ones that held the incantation that could break the curse. Her hands trembled as she unrolled the scroll, her fingers brushing over the unfamiliar characters. The words were ancient, But Yuki had taught her the pronunciation, the rhythm of the spell that could banish Sadako's wrath. Rika took a deep breath, closing her eyes for a brief moment. She could feel the weight of the curse pressing on her chest, could hear Sadako's eerie screech as the spirit's twisted form writhed in fury. But Rika steeled herself. This was it. The moment of truth. With all her strength, Rika began to speak the incantation aloud. Her voice was shaky at first, but it grew stronger with each word. The words seemed to reverberate in the air, shaking the very foundations of the building. Rika could feel the power of the spell as it left her lips, the energy of the ancient words weaving through the air like a thread of light. The darkness around her began to tremble in response. It was as though the very fabric of the curse was being pulled apart, the shadows retreating, quivering, and fading in the presence of the light. As Rika finished the incantation, the words hung in the air, their power crackling through the room. A beam of light pierced the darkness, bright and pure, cutting through the curse like a sword through cloth. The air shimmered with energy, and for a moment Rika thought she had done it. She thought the curse was finally broken. Sadako screeched in fury, a sound that was both human and inhuman. A terrible noise that reverberated in Rika's bones. Her body twisted violently, contorting in ways that should not have been possible. The ground beneath Rika's feet trembled, and the walls of the building seemed to crack, as though the very structure was buckling under the weight of Sadako's rage. The light from Rika's incantation flickered, its strength faltering as Sadako fought back with every ounce of her vengeful power. Sadako lunged at Rika, her movements impossibly fast, her form a blur of darkness and rage. Her cold fingers brushed against Rika's skin, sending an icy chill through her body. Time seemed to slow as Rika felt herself being pulled into the darkness. She could feel the curse wrapping around her, like tendrils of shadow reaching for her, dragging her towards Sadako's malevolent presence. Her body screamed, every instinct telling her to run, to escape, but her legs refused to move. She was paralyzed by fear, by the overwhelming power of Sadako's curse. But then, in the depths of her terror, something inside Rika snapped. She remembered what Yuki had told her. Face the darkness, and it will have no power over you. Rika closed her eyes for a brief moment, and the fear that had gripped her heart began to dissolve. She could feel the darkness pulling at her, but she knew now what she had to do. She couldn't let Sadako win. With one last burst of strength, Rika pushed back, calling upon everything she had learned, everything she had gathered in her search for answers. She reached deep within herself, summoning the will to fight the darkness.
She forced her eyes open, and in that moment, she could see it. Sadako's twisted form, her eyes full of hatred and fury, her body rising from the well like an unstoppable force. But Rika wasn't afraid anymore. She knew what she had to do. She had to confront the darkness head on, face the curse with everything she had. With a strength she didn't know she possessed, Rika stepped forward into the heart of the darkness. She called upon the power of the incantation, speaking the words once more, her voice steady and unwavering. The light from the incantation flared once again, cutting through the shadows like a beacon. This time, the darkness didn't retreat. It fought, but it couldn't win. Rika's will was stronger than the curse.
Sadako let out a final, blood-curdling screech, her body writhing in agony as the curse began to unravel. The building shook violently, and for a moment, Rika thought she would be swallowed by the darkness. But then, as if by some miracle, the light exploded outwards, filling the room with a blinding brilliance. The curse broke, the shadows dissipating into nothingness, and the grip that Sadako had on the world was finally loosened. The air in the room grew still, the tension lifting like a weight being removed from Rika's chest. Rika collapsed to the ground, gasping for breath. Her body was exhausted, her muscles trembling from the ordeal. She had done it. She had faced the darkness, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, the curse was no longer in control. But even as Rika sat there, her body weak from the strain, she knew it wasn't over, not completely. Sadako's presence still lingered in the shadows, a faint echo of her vengeful spirit still haunting the edges of reality. The curse had been broken for now, but Rika knew it would return. Sadako wasn't gone, not entirely. The darkness would always be there, waiting for the next person to make the fatal mistake of watching the video. As Rika looked around, the room now eerily quiet, she couldn't shake the feeling that, despite their victory, the curse was far from finished. Somewhere, deep in the shadows, Sadako's curse still waited, waiting for the next unwitting soul to fall into its grip. The battle was over, but the war was far from won. For now, Rika could only hope that the darkness wouldn't return too soon.